Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And today I want to do a true story episode about the 4 shows that Guns N' Roses opened for the Rolling Stones back in October of 1989. This is an episode I've been meaning to do, but I really wanted to do a proper job of it and get as much background information as I could. And let's talk about Guns N' Roses opening for the Rolling Stones. So Guns N' Roses former manager Alan Niven recently gave an interview where he talked about how the Rolling Stones originally offered Guns N' Roses a chance to open on their Steel Wheels tour for a number of shows across the US. So it wasn't originally an offer to open for 4 shows at the LA Coliseum. And Alan Niven was concerned that the band wouldn't even be able to last the entire tour due to some of the members, debilitating drug addictions. So instead, he was able to get Guns N' Roses to open for 4 shows for the Rolling Stones at the LA Coliseum. And he said they probably made more money opening for those 4 shows than they would have had Guns N' Roses been on the road with the Rolling Stones across America. So the story of Guns N' Roses opening for the Stones really began, according to the book Last of the Giants by Mick Wall, where he interviewed Alan Niven, who was Guns N' Roses manager at the time. So Alan Niven found himself in a car with Bill Elson one day, who was Guns N' Roses' American booking agent. So both guys were driving to see Metallica play at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and although Metallica would soon be on an upward curve almost as steep as Guns N' Roses, neither man was particularly interested in the actual show. Instead, both guys were going to socialize with Metallica's managers Cliff Bernstein and Peter Mensch, who aside from looking after Metallica and Def Leppard, had been asked to oversee the monolithic stadium tour about to be undertaken by the Rolling Stones, who at that time was still the biggest grossing live act almost 3 decades after they'd come to stardom. The weather on that drive was awful, and as Elson drove, he tried to convince Alan Niven that Guns N' Roses should support the Rolling Stones on their tour. The offer was $50,000 per show, including the chance to play at the vast 77,000 capacity LA Coliseum, for which Elson guessed lifelong Stone fans like Izzy, Slash, and Axl might be prepared to remove their right nuts. The offer had come directly from Mick Jagger's office, Elson mentioned casually. But if Elson expected Niven to bite his hand off, he was wrong. Niven knew what the band would say, and he was right. We got to play with the Stones, Slash and Izzy chorused. But he had a different view. Firstly, in his eyes, the Stones were now a heritage act. And according to Alan Niven, the Stones had a habit of appointing the hottest act in rock and roll to be their openers, so that would help the Stones sell even more tickets. Any move that helped broaden the public perception of Guns N' Roses away from the LA metal scene of Motley Crue and Poison and more towards the classic rock and roll status of the Stones was most welcome. Thank you very much. But at $50,000 a show, when Elson knew better than anyone that Guns N' Roses could now make double that by headlining their own shows, what kind of bullshit was that? So Alan Niven told Bill he'd think about it, then dug around and discovered that the Stones had already announced 2 nights at the LA Coliseum and had further 4 on hold. 2 nights alone represented over 150,000 tickets, with an average seat going for about $30, while the best seats were being offered around town by ticket brokers for up to $700 a ticket. Then there was the money that would be rolling in from merchandise sales alone, as well as their standard $20 t-shirts, were such upscale items as a $450 leather jacket and a $190 flight jacket. When a rumor leaked by persons or parties unknown that Guns N' Roses would support the Stones got out, Niven read the runes, saw that this was happening, and called Bill to tell him that Guns N' Roses would not be doing the shows. Elson was aghast. Nobody turned down the Stones, but when LA Times rang Niven about the rumor, he told them the same thing, citing the age difference between the bands and pointing to the fact that Guns N' Roses were now the band with all the street credibility. By this time, Slash and Izzy were almost apoplectic. Niv, it's the effing Stones. We've got to do it, urged Izzy, but Niven stood firm, and finally Elson called him again. Said he'd received another call from Mick Jagger's office, and there was a new offer. 4 nights at the LA Coliseum for $500,000. Niven countered that the band's price was now around $1 million. We've already sold him Jagger's a shitload of tickets, he told Elson. Once again, Bill was forced to go back to the Stones with bad news, and this wasn't how things were supposed to be. It was a gamble, Niven knew, but one worth taking. If the Stones paid up, then Guns N' Roses would earn almost as much for 4 shows as they would have for an entire tour at $50,000 per night, as well as saving themselves all of the usual costs associated with touring. There was another element to Niven's thinking, though. He was not prepared to share with the Stones or anyone else, but it was crucial to his thinking. The fact was, after nearly a year off on the road, during which all 5 members had splintered off into different and yet sometimes frightening worlds, Guns N' Roses as a working band were not in a fit state to go on the road, at least not until 4/5 of them had cleaned up. Apart from the audacity of countering Mick Jagger, whose love of the dollar bill was legendary, it was one of the few cards Niven had to play. When Niven went to watch the Stones play in St. Louis, he got worried all over again. The show was still a review, but the Stones were hot again. Keith oozing cool, reviving by a successful solo record and tour, Mick still impossibly athletic and vital, Guns N' Roses by contrast looked near death. Nevertheless, Niven's gamble had worked. Now, due to the controversy of 1 in a Million, even the Rolling Stones were asked at a press conference why Guns N' Roses were opening for them. Here's what the Rolling Stones had to say.
Why have Guns N' Roses when there's been so much controversy over their lyrics with references to blacks and homosexuals and immigrants?
Because we want to appeal more to the gay black market.
So Alan Niven's gamble had paid off, as the band would receive $1 million for 4 shows opening for the Rolling Stones and appearing alongside In Living Color as well. Axl wasn't laughing though when at the warm-up gig for the Coliseum shows, a club gig promoted as a Rip magazine party, he told Izzy he didn't want to play with the Rolling Stones. Izzy was taken aback but not hugely concerned. Axl was always worried about things to a ludicrous extent. He hadn't wanted to do the Aerosmith tour. He then looked back on it as the highlight of the year. Whatever happened, Niv could handle it. Then at 6 a.m. on October 18th, the morning of the first show, Axl rang Izzy and told him he was quitting Guns N' Roses. Again, however, Izzy was unsure how seriously to take the claim. Axl, by his own admission, quit the band every 3 days, as he told Howard Stern in a radio interview just a few weeks before. This time, though, it was different. With controversy over 1 in a Million still raging, Living Colour's vocalist Vernon Reid had voiced strong concerns in the press. In order to avoid any possible clash at the Coliseum shows, Axl and the band had been allotted their own separate area backstage on the opposite side from Living Colour's dressing rooms. According to the Coliseum Combs, Axl's personal assistant, he was already so paranoid about the reaction to his first major appearance on stage since the controversy over 1 in a Million would provoke. He really thought someone was going to take him out. He thought someone was going to kill him. When Izzy arrived at the Coliseum that afternoon, he passed along the news to Alan Niven. It's going to be a long 4 days, Izzy told Niven. Niven would be there, though, and he knew it from the get-go either way that Axl hadn't told anyone else he was going to quit, just Izzy. Maybe he'd wake up feeling differently, or he just wouldn't show up and Niven would face the worst day of his professional career. As the hours till the show dragged by and Axl still failed to arrive backstage, the tension in the GNR dressing room was such that Doug Goldstein was almost in tears. When Living Colour took the stage, Niven knew it was time for a desperate measure. Once again, he didn't flinch from taking them. As he says now, Axl not turning up for a show was not altogether a novel circumstance and did not necessarily mean he would eventually come. However, his non-appearance at the show in Phoenix the previous year had produced a minor riot with considerable property damage. So Alan Niven turned to Stone's production chief Brian Ahern and asked him, "Brian, do you have a real solid contact at the LAPD, a genuine no questions kind of guy?" Ahern answered, "I'll send him in." Without another word, Ahern made the call, cool and completely without confusion or stress. "Brian is an exceptional individual and I will forever appreciate his calm and his confidence," says Niven. "I spoke with his contact and within minutes a black and white containing a reliable pair of uniformed cops pulled up at the Shoreham Towers. The uniformed cops raced up to the 20th floor and began banging on Axl's front door. The startled occupants were hurtled down into a cruiser and sirens waiting and lights ablaze. The police car sliced through the evening traffic and the car drew up at the very foot of the steps leading to the stage. It was in this manner that Axl arrived at the Coliseum to appear before 77,000 LA generates, a mere 25 minutes behind schedule. As Axl stepped out of the police car, he had a face like thunder, and when he had been told that Vernon Reid, speaking from the stage, had given a short speech halfway through Living Colour's set to the effect that anybody who called anyone else an N-word was promoting racism and bigotry, no matter how hard they tried to explain it away, he was apoplectic. When he was told that there was large sections of the Coliseum crowd that had stood on their seats and applauded loudly, whistling and cheering their approval, he was ready to kill somebody. "We went out with a mission," Reid later explained. "I made a statement about 1 in a Million on stage, and I remember afterwards Keith Richards made a point to come over to our dressing room and shake my hand. Ultimately," he says, "when I heard that song, I was probably more disappointed than anything because I liked the band." When word got back to the GNR dressing room about Reid's put-down and that it had received a standing ovation, concern over how Axl might react, such to that no one could bear to make eye contact with him. Guns N' Roses took the stage just before 8 p.m. and the band was still tuning up, getting ready to blast off when Axl grabbed the mic and told the audience that this was possibly Guns N' Roses' last show unless some members in the band started cleaning up their act. Here's the rant from Axl.
I hate to do this on stage, but I've tried every other fucking way. And unless certain people in this band get their shit together, these will be the last Guns N' Roses shows you'll fucking ever see. Because I'm tired of too many people in this organization dancing with Mr. Goddamn Brownstone.
The show's also notable because before Guns N' Roses started playing their set, Axl talked about the song One in a Million and the controversy surrounding it. Here's his rant.
Michael, stand up!
Before we start playing, calm down. Calm the fuck down for a minute. Okay, I'll wait. I am sick and fucking tired of this publicity bullshit about our fucking song, One in a Million, with police and niggers, immigrants and faggots, and radicals and racists. I don't give a goddamn fuck what fucking color you fucking are, as long as you ain't no goddamn thief, drug-using, fucking crack-selling piece of shit. Black man's a fucking nigger. That means if you go downtown and some fucking asshole's trying to sell you free parking for $15, kick him in the fucking nuts. I don't give a shit about gay people either, but I don't need some faggot trying to rape me. Immigrants, I don't care what fucking goddamn country you're from. You're in America, just act like it, that's all.
Somebody comes to sit in these spots, we've got to go.
If you fucking got a problem or what color you are and you want to call me a racist, shove your head up your fucking ass.
So the first show that Guns N' Roses opened for the Stones, Axl actually fell off stage. So here's a clip of him falling off stage. So Axl had refused to come and view the construction of the Stones' massive stage ahead of the show, and he found himself blinded by several follow spots as he attempted to race back and forth from one side of the stage to the other. He ran clear off stage and plunged into the photographer's pit. "I stopped breathing," said Alan Niven. Then slowly a hand holding a microphone emerged from the darkness as slowly two security men hoisted Axl back on stage. Slash talked about the incident in his book. He said, "I was so pissed off about that, and he was pissed at me for being a junkie, that I spent the better half of the show facing my amps. Nothing was together that night. The band sounded horrible. In my state of mind, I walked off stage, got right into my limo, and went to get high in my room." The next day, Doug Goldstein told me that Axl would play the remaining shows as long as I apologized on stage to the audience for being a junkie. That was a pretty hard pill to swallow. In retrospect, I understand why Axl singled me out rather than Steven. I am the stronger of the two of us, and Axl relied on me more. My presence was important to him. He felt that I was a link in the band that couldn't afford to be out of control. Still, I didn't think a public gesture was necessary. When you're high, you're arrogant, and there's no way I was going to take the blame in that way. I didn't think that smack was causing the problems in the band, and even if it was, now was not the time to make an issue of it. But I had to do something, so when the time came, I walked out there, and rather than apologize, I went into some banter about heroin and what it can do to you, and how we've been around the block a few times. So here's the clip from Slash talking about heroin at the second Stones gig.
Can I just get everybody's attention out here just for a couple seconds? We'll just get it real quiet so you can hear me out for a minute. Alright, just want to make an announcement. I wanted to say that Over the years, rock and roll has lost a lot of the great ones, from fucking Elvis and Hendrix and Bonham and Joplin, and a lot of those people, you know, fucking rock and roll and excess is synonymous. I know a lot of you people have been around for a long time that are out in the crowd tonight, and you've seen it come and go, and you know the story, and then a lot of you younger people are just now getting hip to what drugs are all about. A lot of fucking attention's been brought to this band about, you know, some of the excesses that we get into. And, you know, a lot of that press is bullshit and a lot of stuff is true, but it's a lot of unnecessary time and attention brought to something that's basically, in the long run, just ain't that happening. I mean, it's a lot of fun when you get into it and you have a good time, but when it comes down to life and people's futures and what existing is supposed to be all about, it just ain't that fucking happening, you know? Anyway, last night almost saw the very fucking last gig of this band. Guns N' Roses worked for a fucking long time to get to this point. I mean, me and Steven used to walk down this fucking corridors to see Aerosmith, and Van Halen, and the Stones and shit. Yeah, but hold on. And we used to dream about actually getting up on stage at this place and fucking doing the same thing, and we're actually here. And I was sitting up on stage last night, not even fucking realizing where I was at. Anyway, so I just wanted to just let you guys know that fucking smack and all that crap, it's just not what it's all about. Guns N' Roses is going to be one of those weak fucking bands that falls apart over it. So this is the song dedicated by me and whoever else wants to fucking stand up and fucking say something against it, man. It's something called Brownstone, man. Just fucking stick together, it's over.
Axl refused to leave his dressing room until Slash talked to the audience about the drug problems in the band. And once that happened, Doug told Axl that Slash did it, and Axl was pleased and returned to the stage, and the whole vibe of the band turned around, and they launched into Mr. Brownstone. And according to Slash's book, suddenly our camaraderie returned. Once those personal issues were handled, we were able to focus on playing. The second show was fine, and the third was even better. We really got it all down by then. The fourth show was effing amazing. We were at our best. The Stones had watched Guns N' Roses for all 4 nights, Slash had been told, because we reminded them of themselves back in the day. Now, Duff McKagan had a different view of the incident in his book. He said, "I shrank, I was so effing embarrassed, and I was so effing mad that Axl felt he could do this to me. I would have been supportive if he was sufficiently pissed off at certain guys to want to confront them for what was going on. I was with him, the situation was bad, but he needed to talk about that shit in private, not out here, never out here." Once Axl took his concerns public, the time of being a gang, us against the world, were over. We played the rest of the show, but it was a half-hearted effort at best. Afterwards, and really for the remainder of our career, we went our separate ways. That night officially rang the bell for the end of an era in Guns N' Roses. So the first gig that Guns N' Roses played for the Stones on the 18th of October, Duff McKagan's brother Matt actually joined the band on stage to play horns on the song Move to the City. He also joined them again on the second and third and fourth night. And then during the second night that Guns N' Roses played, Axl played the bass guitar during Rocket Queen, and Axl actually referred to falling off stage the previous night. The third gig that Guns N' Roses played with the Stones, Axl said there hadn't been anyone in rock and roll to crucify for a while, so it might now be Guns N' Roses and Axl Rose's turn. So during the fourth and final night, opening for the Stones, Out to Get Me was dedicated to overbearing authority figures, and during Knocking on Heaven's Door, Axl said, "Come on people, we gotta warn you up for the greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Rolling Stones." So fast forward now to December of 1989, and both Axl and Izzy go to Atlantic City and perform 3 shows with the Rolling Stones where they come on stage for a couple songs. Here's the MTV News report of the concerts.
But for its off nights as for its legendary highs, played the first for the Devil in 2,000 Light Years from Home. However, they definitely got a rise out of the audience when they brought on Axl Rose and Izzy Stradlin from Guns N' Roses for a joint run-through of a song off the Stones' 1968 LP, Beggar's Banquet, called Salt of the Earth. Stones held a very low-key post-show celebration last night for the 46th birthdays of Keith Richards and auxiliary hornman Bobby Keys, and for Richards' wedding anniversary, too. After tomorrow night's pay-per-view concert, the band will play one more show in Atlantic City on Wednesday, and that's it, at least until they go back on the road next year. The Stones tomorrow night, when Kurt will bring you the news at night from Atlantic City. Well, Axl Rose may be jamming with the Stones in Jersey right now, but it was only last week that he was in Los Angeles, guesting on stage with another performer he's often cited as a major influence, former Hanoi Rocks vocalist Michael Monroe. It was the first of Monroe's four-night stand at LA's Whiskey Club, coming at the tail end of a month-long club tour to promote his debut solo LP, Not Fakin' It. Axl, who appears in Monroe's current video, Dead, Jail, or Rock and Roll, joined Monroe for a live version of that song. And when Rose left the stage, Guns N' Roses guitarist Slash came on, and he and Monroe teamed up for a version of Can't Go Home Again, an old MC5 song that the two performed together in Chicago several weeks back. We're told Slash and Axl both watched each other's performances intently, but their unwillingness to appear on stage together may be another indication that relations between the two bandmates is still not completely thawed out. Well, a few days before the Mike Monroe show, Slash turned out to see Jeff Beck and Stevie Ray Vaughan at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. Backstage, who did he run into but David Bowie? The bearded Bowie was there to visit Vaughan, who played guitar on Bowie's 1983 hit Let's Dance. But he and Slash also seemed to be having a laugh over something, and as you can see, it was an opportunity for us to get a rare look at Slash's face.
Fast forward now to 1990, where Axl Rose appears on Kurt Loder's MTV show Famous Last Words, and he looks back at the Rolling Stone gigs and talks about what it was like playing with the band. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more Guns N' Roses videos. Take care.
Security.
What did you, when you finally got on the stage with the Stones last fall, were they what you expected them to be, 27 years on in their career? Did they still have something going for them, did you think?
It was great playing with them. It was a definite dream. I mean, it was something that we told people we were going to do, and people were going, no, they're broke up. I don't care. We're going to open for the Stones. You wait. We're going to do this. I don't know how, but we're going to do this. So, and then, I told Keith Richards that, and he's like, well, you made it, mate. Let me have a cigarette.